From dirty water to hot, that's where the dogs find themselves this week. Get the details on this week's episode of the Indie Ball Report podcast. Episode 260 of the Indie Ball Report podcast. We're just back again, another episode. I'm not even going to attempt to make the hot dog joke I was about to try, and I will probably cut that whole section out because I mean, really, we're talking about the Chicago dogs a lot, and like they got like everything in a hot dog out there except for ketchup, which is kind of weird to me. That you throw like sesame seeds and something and a pickle on a hot dog, but ketchup's the bridge too far.
There's something about like in a pickle you could have worked with too. Or he just leaned all the way and been like, I got a hot dog, Ryan Spring and Buns on this week's Indie Ball Report podcast. And then just see the retention fall off.
You know, so if you've been following along on Twitter, we'll cue you in on all that Chicago dogs talk that we're doing. And I will address it by saying a lot of this I got tipped off to. And I spent the past week vetting it. And it seems to be pretty legitimate, but it's obviously a developing story, so we'll update as needed. And we'll stay on this until there is a resolution, we'll say. Now, what the resolution looks like, who the hell knows? You know.
It's going to look like the Ruby Ridge standoff. What do you mean?
I was hoping more Waco, but whatever.
Hey, one and the same, my guy.
So the Chicago dog story. Let's get into that before we go further off the rails, because there's probably about a 30-minute bonus episode in here somewhere that's going to get lobbed off. But plus side, it's going to make this editing process a little bit easier. So, hey.
And the worst content in Indie Ball Report history becomes the best content in Indie Ball Nation history. The circle of life.
It moves us all.
Doesn't it, though? Tell me about Chicago, man. So, and for the listeners, I mean, I have some background on what's going on. I've had some conversations on my end too, but I'm learning a lot of this, I think, as you are. So I might ask some questions here that seem like, wow, you have no idea what's going on? Yeah, buddy, you should ask. So, Nick, the floor is yours, my guy.
It's just always important to have a surrogate for the audience in here. You know, that's...
And if the audience is clueless, then I'm the best surrogate there can be.
I wasn't insulting all of you listeners like that. That was Ryan doing that.
I cannot read a room or otherwise.
He'll be getting a shirt with tire tracks for his birthday because I just run him over, no regard.
Yeah, it's basically like bringing on a child and being like, I am the expert. And I'm like, okay.
So a week ago, or as I should say, about a week ago,
a week ago. Well, don't tease it if you're not going to do it. That's what she said.
We were doing an interview with Brady Salisbury, and then Ryan burst in and said, "Hey, Josh Altman's been traded." And then we had a whole little discussion about that. Listen to last week's episode at the very end. That got tossed in there. And so then we went ahead and we had a whole discussion on it on that show. We were like, it's very odd to trade Josh Altman, especially when it's just straight up for Augie Voigt. No disrespect to Augie Voigt. Solid, I'd say, number 2 or extremely good number 3 starter in the American Association. Probably could get by with him as a 1, but that's not the solid one. He's not who we're talking about here. Point was, it seemed like a lopsided trade. So I believe at that time I said, maybe this is Hobson related because this is odd. It shouldn't be the case. So I went ahead, posted a bunch of stuff. And what's neat is when you post stuff, people in the know tend to put you into the know. So
yeah, I refer to it just shamelessly as chumming the waters at this point.
Oh yeah.
If I know there's something, but I don't know what, I'll just report on it as much as I can, knowing that someone will say something. Yeah.
Well,
I like that we're using the same theory.
Yeah, exactly. And like to give a little bit more insight on that, if you say something that's like a little bit wrong, not wrong, but like a little bit misleading, someone immediately chimes and goes, that's not right. And they're like, oh, well then tell me what's right. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we have a base to work off of now.
95% of our life online for Nick and I is just that song from Grease. Tell me more. Tell me more. Did they have a bad relationship with ownership?
Hey, ownership comes later on.
Hey, I'm there.
But yeah, so, and obviously I won't mention the names of the people that were talking to us. That would just be a very poor decision for everybody involved. But I got filled in on a lot of details, and here's what I know. Apparently, the front office in Chicago is a little toxic. It's a little unprofessional and not the best working conditions. Now, the extent of that and the details behind that, I'm still filling in. But that's the general vibe from what we got, is that it's not the best place to work as a player. We know at least one player had an opportunity to play internationally, i.e., in Asia or Mexico, and they turned down that opportunity because Chicago had promised them a contract that was very enticing. Again, specific details, I don't know, but being that there's a salary cap in that league, I got to imagine it's towards the upper end of what they could pay one player and reasonably field a competitive team. That contract was then either rescinded or never materialized. In any event, that disappeared from the player's potential, and that led to some issues. Again, we know what player. I'm not going to say what player. We also got confirmation that both Butch Hobson and Joe Dominic, the two coaches that were released from the staff, were done over text. So the theory I threw out last week of, I heard one person say it, that's been confirmed. We know for a fact Joe's been fired too. That was likely through text, but we know for a fact Butch was fired via text. That seems to be
wild.
Yeah, which is pretty
Butch's career. Wild.
I know. I'm a complete baseball lifer to be fired like that.
Major league experience, long-time manager. That is, I thought when that was said, I was like, there's no way to get confirmation on that, because you did mention that previously to me. Yeah. And I was like, it's going to be so hard to confirm, dude. It's because that's something that anybody who's aware will be ashamed of and try to downplay, and people won't want to talk about it. But good Lord.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I mean, he was, a major league manager. Right? For Boston.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like, that's crazy.
I mean, that's why, at first I didn't want to believe it, but at the same point in time, I'm kind of done, saying, oh, I don't believe anything. But yeah, no, 3 years with Boston.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, good. I mean, it's just shocking I can even hear it and still shocked by it.
Yeah, it's just shameless. Mm-hmm. A little bit more on the Joe Dominic firing. He was fired during the playoffs last year at the conclusion of the Milwaukee series. I don't have double confirmation on it, but I do have one that did say the reason for his firing was he had requested from, I suppose it'd be ownership or the front office. I don't know which one in particular, but I imagine this would come more from ownership because they're more in control of that budget, that the players be allowed to celebrate with champagne on the field after beating Milwaukee. And that request was denied. And then he was fired the subsequent day. So the following day, he got canned right before a championship series.
So we'll roll that into the alleged category, but the circumstances around it do seem to check out.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of that, but if that was why you fire your hitting coach during the playoffs, that's a very thin-skinned reason to fire somebody.
That's wild.
Yeah. So in addition to that, we also know that at least 6 players have been rumored to be retired. I don't know for certain. We know one dog has retired. That's Lidge, and the league made that public. So that's probably unrelated to all of this. The other 5, I don't believe have made any sort of public statement about being retired, at least not that I could see. Admittedly, some of these guys have their profile set to private, and I'm still waiting for a follow back that after this probably will not come, but hey,
we'll see.
So maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. And if we see a goodbye baseball post with a Little League photo, then we know for certain that they are actually done and not just I don't want to be here anymore done.
That is the sign, isn't it?
Yeah, it always is that.
And you need
a hashtag blessed or hashtag thankful.
Next up, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
A Bible verse. You're going to need that Bible verse in there.
Yeah. I want to thank God for giving me this opportunity to live my childhood dream.
That's my wife, who I married 2 years ago and dated 3 years ago, but who has been with me the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. Along with my 4-year-old son.
If you feel attacked, it ain't you.
See, the problem is this describes like a non-insignificant amount of rosters.
If you're listening to this and you're like, I think they're talking about me. We're not, and we also are.
Keeping on the Chicago roster demo derby here, 5 players have also sought a home in other leagues. If you're paying attention to the transaction wire, including Ryan's transaction spreadsheet page that's pinned on the Twitter account.
Yes, sir.
Which would be
at IndieBall Nation on Twitter.
There we go. Get the plugs in.
I'm there.
You can go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead and quickly see who went from Chicago to other leagues and other teams. So you could kind of start to piece that together if you wanted to. I'm not going to tell you to do it, but and I'm not going to say it's related to this drama. It could just very well be both sides agreed they didn't want to come back, or maybe Chicago didn't want them back, or whatever it may be, and they went for another opportunity. But there's a couple guys there that have left for other places. There have been also several other players that have expressed a desire to move but have not requested a trade. That is very important. They've never went to ownership and said, I want to be dealt. But privately, they have said, a change of scenery would be welcomed. So make of that what you will. Again, that's more of a private thing that they've talked to some people about. So if you're talking about in private, that means it must be bothering you on some level.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Supposedly, like I said, I've gotten more worried about ownership than front office people, but I will again say I lack confirmation there and I lack some confidence in that, but there have been reports that ownership is a little bit fickle, that they may be a little bit rushed to judgment-y. I don't know. If you look at ownership in the background they've worked in sports entertainment for a very long time, so I'm not sure how much that tracks to be involved with major groups like, say, the NHL and AEG and things like that, to be very, fickle about it, to not be able to, take some hits. I don't think you get that far without, having a thick skin. So I'm not sure how much I buy ownership on that. But that being said, I did get a lot of people talking about ownership or mentioning ownership in all this discussion. So that is something to note there. I will say also there have been several others that have vouched for the organization when I mentioned, hey, there's some troubling rumors. Have you ever had a bad experience with them? The answer from them was, I haven't personally, or they were always good. I always had no problems with them. So there have been some pushback on it. Some have said, ownership is good, or the front office is good, or the org's good. I've just also received a lot to the contrary. So I do want to throw that out there, that it hasn't all been one-sided. So as I said, it's developing. We'll keep updating, but the general consensus is 2 guys got fired over text. 11 players have supposedly left as a result of it or wanted to leave as a result of it. And at least 1 player turned down what would have been a very nice payday playing in an international league, only to be left empty-handed. So that appears to be the situation as it stands right now.
Is there anything like specific to the Altman situation that you were able to grab and that's shareable? I know it's tough.
Exactly. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. As far as Altman,
it's tough because I understand too, because you have to, having just gone through the Gastonia drama from my side of things, like it is tough because you have to find a way to express something or see if there is a way to express it without saying it in a way where only like 1 person or 2 people could have known the info, and they're very easily exposed to sourcing.
Exactly. So that's exactly to a T what I'm trying to do here. I don't know for certain that he was one of those guys, but from the way people were talking, I wouldn't be surprised if he was.
Okay.
I don't know if he was the international player, because I think there was a couple of guys like that. So I don't want to say that was him, but I do think there's a possibility he was one of the 5 others. I think that. I would believe that. Solely because, like I said, that trade is odd, and that was the thing that spurred a lot of conversation. So you don't get a lot of conversation off of a trade involving a player and then have that player not involved. That's just me drawing a conclusion from what I have. That's not someone outright saying he was one of them. I never had someone say he was one of them, but I could see that being the case.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking through, and this is something that we've now talked about in the past, and I'm working on some research on, where it starts to run into something I'm hearing whispers of from other sources around indie ball, that some of the worst ownership / front offices to work with are starting to be exposed a little more as this Mexican league change really starts to impact, where because not only are these organizations dealing with the frustration of finding players who want to play there and aren't going to Mexico, but also it's these longer term relationships where all of a sudden now some of these teams are feeling betrayed because a guy now has a better opportunity in another league and he's, looking to go there, which I think we're both of the opinion, get your money. Like, it's a hard industry. So it's
even harder when you're 30 years old and not really having a lot of major league prospects anymore. Go get the bag. Baseball doesn't last forever.
Yes. And there's two things I'll throw in here, and then we'll get back to the real heart of the matter, just I think for clarifying points for listeners. The first of which is, again, something I dealt with a lot of my Gastonia reporting. It is really easy to eye roll and, dismiss anonymous sourcing. And I just remind people that I think there's times where it's like, this anonymous source in like the NBA said something and you're like, all right, put a name on it, buddy. Or it seems like it's just an internal pettiness at like a company, essentially. But at this level, these guys are not making a lot of money. They are risking a lot by putting something out there. Yeah. That could be, it could cause them to lose their job and have to find another job with who knows what when it comes to pay, and who knows who they could be upsetting, and who knows what repercussions they might deal with coming to another team who might feel like, well, we don't want him to leak something about something if, there was something newsworthy to happen. So it is a risk they're taking, but they're willing to speak up about something when they see something wrong. And I respect the hell out of that. There are other people who want to anonymous for something and they'll say something that's flat out wrong. And we've caught that before. We were just talking about that before the show. And we do. And Nick, I'm happy that I work with you on a lot of things because you do a good job of like actually back sourcing things, understand the importance of getting two independent sources and all that. So that's why I like sharing resources with you, and we like to sort of bounce back and forth on what we've got. And that's why I am willing to sort of ride along with you on most things, especially even if it's a weird one where it's kind of out of the blue. You don't really hear much about the Chicago Dogs, and it's not like how Gastonia had whispers for a long while. On the other side too, it is easy from a fan perspective to sit and go, wow, that guy's straight up leaving the country, saying like one guy or another who might have played for your team for a year, might have played for 6 months, might have played there for 6 years. Suddenly being like, if you lived there for 6 months, that's a full season. I get that. I said it though, and we're not going back. But I would encourage you to remember a baseball player only has so many years to make money. They are already at an independent level where they're probably making $2,000 a month. And only making that in the season. A lot of these guys have families, and also a lot of them, while they are leaving for more money in Mexico, it is still a sacrifice to go. Like they're willing to take a risk, take a leap here and do something for themselves and bet on themselves going to the Mexican League. And, just like any other profession, you really can't be mad about a guy trying to go get his money, especially a guy who's been good to a fan base and perform their best and try to give them a good show every night. So if a little part of you is like, but I don't like it. I don't like leaving for more money somewhere else. Try to find it in your heart. I try to push past that and try to understand that, like, look, man, if the opportunity was there for you, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't go for it. But like, you gotta at least respect a guy for shooting the shot and trying to bet on himself. So those are my two things there on the main holdups from a fan perspective, I feel in that reporting. But it's interesting, man, because really Chicago feels like a random one to start hearing stuff out of.
Exactly. Yeah. And just a couple points. First off, appreciate the words. Secondly, also in addition is for a lot of players, getting a job is as much your own ability as it is who you know. So you don't want to be, telling a story, have it run back and look back on someone that could be offering you a job later on, right? You may not be with an organization anymore, but do you really want to burn a bridge and not be able to go back to it? Or do you really want to put somebody else in a bad spot that's in that organization and then have them be like, well, he really didn't make my job easy there for that like 12-month period. So screw him. I'm not going to give him that chance. And I'm going to tell the people that I'm close with not to give him that chance either. It's a real risk. And so you don't want to take that risk. And yeah. And I'd also say too, it's one thing if you feel, I don't want to say betrayed, but if you don't like a player leaving, and it's on, say, like the major league level, I can understand that a bit more. The pay is a lot more comparable. And I don't want to say money's all the same at a certain level, but at a certain point, you leave between 10 and 11 million, $1 million difference when you already have 10 million coming in. I can understand being a lot more upset about that versus a guy that's going to go from making really 12 grand for half the year to now jumping that up to like, say, 36.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge difference, right? Just that 36 alone means, okay, now I can go play winter ball and afford to play winter ball, and I could still reasonably come out at around like 50-ish, which means I can survive, myself perfectly fine. If I have a family, then I'll be pretty good. And you understand that, okay, your wife or your partner is probably, shouldering a lot of the load while you're playing baseball because you're not really available, right? You're at the ballpark at like 5 and you're there until like 10. And then by the time you get done there, like you really are just drained because you spent 5 hours playing a sport. And then there's all the mentally taxing side of things as well. So there's so much going on there that you're really not present in season. So you're asking that other half to really shoulder a lot of that burden. So if you can go and alleviate a financial concern too, you're doing a whole world of good. So this isn't just like, oh, well, he's chasing money like, say, a major league level player would. This is, no, he's chasing a livelihood so he can continue to do this. That's what he's doing. And I think that's what bothers me the most about a lot of this, where a guy has that opportunity and then you take it from him. Again, I don't know which player it is. So maybe they have a couple years built up. Maybe it's someone that didn't. But to take that away from them is really low. To take away the opportunity to have that kind of financial security from a guy, it just doesn't sit right with me. And yeah,
that's a good read. That touched on a couple things, and I think this is a national trend here, and I swear this will relate and it's going to come back. But I think it's something to be aware of, and this is why actually something that a few days ago started pushing me to get back focused on doing the survey again for players about how organizations are. So I want it available like the moment spring training starts for organizations. So there'll be like sort of immediate feedback and starting with accountability. So, which who knows? Owners probably won't care, but it is what it is. At least players will know. But the thought is, this is like I will say loosely our generation, with an understanding that we're fringe, that we are finding a lot of negative feedback about the way we handle our own careers for quote job hopping. And the reality is, in the way the current career ladders are set up in our economy, is that really you're more likely to stagnate within one company. You used to climb the ladder, now it's more likely to not. And with that, your best opportunity for growth financially and just professionally is very often to move from company to company about every 2 years, frankly. And that is sort of echoed throughout. And you look specifically to baseball, that forever free agency was nothing. I mean, at first it was everything in the original indie leagues, and we're going to get down to it, but it became nothing, where you play for the same team forever until they said you're done playing for them. And that same sort of loyalty is expected from ownership even today. Well, not understanding that is basically built in many ways for free agent. Think about how in Major League Baseball, it's all about free agency. When are you going to be a free agent? Because that's where you can start to get your money and get your choices in order and choose where you want to be and all of that. And there are very few careers that are really like that, where you have such a limited window to do the job and honestly limited opportunities to go other places. So for an owner to suddenly be like, how dare you? Or just kind of generally have that vibe of like, well, like, we'll see about that, or make things difficult. It's just wrong. And that's whether we're talking about, your left fielder, or if we're talking about your, ticket window person. It's just not the way to do business. And I think that everybody should note that. And that's why I think that hopefully getting a survey going, getting good feedback on it's going to be important, because I think people should know if they're walking into an ownership situation like that. So I don't know that I would have. And I'm pretty, you know me, I'm pretty in the weeds on good and bad front offices. With that too, it's an entitlement that multiple ownerships have, whether it's one we hear about a lot or not, of, when it comes to player housing, maybe, or employee housing, of like, hey, everybody wants to work for a baseball team. Everyone wants to play baseball. I'd play it for free. And, they should be lucky. They should be lucky to even have this. And how dare them want something more? And that might sound crazy, but y'all, I've heard it from over half a dozen owners that I've talked to. I've heard that mentality. No, hold on. Owners / GMs, call it that. Because it was probably less than 6, but when you combine the GM conversation, when it comes to decision makers, it just depends on the organization who's calling those shots. So, it's just, that's a mentality. It does not work. That is not how you build a healthy environment and economy within an industry. So that needs to be reconsidered immediately if that's starting to continuing to flourish within leagues, because at the end of the day, you'd play for free, but nobody's asking you to.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
So you got like, what are we doing? Yeah.
That's what it comes
to get into the boring macroeconomics of it. I can back away from it, but it's just, it is a larger trend, and one trend nationally in every industry we need to start to probably nip a little bit, because man, if we're only worried about the feelings of the people at the top, we're going to be in some trouble here.
Yeah.
If we were worried about the feelings of the people at the top, we never would have started the revolution. We would have never had this great country. We would have never had Dollar Dog Night.
What's going to be great is if I cut that Dollar Dog bit out, then that's just going to be
I know. Zero context, but if you know me, you still won't be surprised. It'll feel normal.
But I will say the macroeconomic rant is the point, though. It's that, I understand, like, they're lucky to be playing, and like every player knows, like, I'm lucky to have the opportunity. But at the same point in time, you're talking about them like they're unskilled workers here. This isn't like just replacing a janitor whose job is to sweep and mop that anyone could do. Not anyone can go out and play baseball on a professional level. These guys are still highly skilled. You're still going up against guys that were largely all drafted, spent many years in a minor league system being developed, and for one reason or another, injury, age, stagnation, development, whatever it may be, they got a better prospect at the position they were at, and they're just like, hey, we're done developing this dude. Whatever the reason may be for leaving or not being an affiliated ball anymore, they have this now. That's just the reality of it. That doesn't mean they're untalented. It means they're still extremely talented. They're still probably in the top, 1-2% of people to play the sport, be able to do it professionally and be able to hit a fastball coming in at 90 an hour. The average dude that's like, I'd love to play baseball for a living, can't do that. A, and B, if you're just doing indie ball, I got news for you. You're not doing that for a living. That's a side hustle, dude. Like, monetarily speaking. It's a full-time grind. It's part-time pay.
It's year-round work for small pay a few months of the year.
Exactly.
So we're clear. And yeah, I mean, if we're getting into what's, difficult, what is skilled labor and what isn't skilled labor? I mean, I'd offer that skilled labor is playing baseball. I'd offer that not skilled labor, not skilled work that takes talent would be inheriting a bunch of money and buying yourself a team with your daddy's money. If, your name was also at one point, your last name was gracing a ballpark in New York, for instance, perhaps around Flushing. If we're talking skilled labor.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it takes some skill to be able to mismanage a team.
It takes time to start and run failed nightclubs and then start and run failed baseball teams that were handed to you pretty healthy.
I don't know who we could possibly be talking about, but any case,
Certainly nobody who also said that people should be lucky and feel blessed to have empty apartments with no furniture. Certainly not. I think Rick White listens to this podcast? I don't think so. I get a funny suspicion he doesn't.
I don't think he does anymore. If he ever did. He won't come back around here no more.
Dude, I don't want to be negative on this one. But again, it's like if you feel like we've been negative a couple episodes or a dozen, I do think it's one of those things that in the off season, if you're making news, it's either because you signed somebody, in which case it's a quicker analysis, or it is something under the surface off the field that probably requires research. So it also deserves to be discussed in bigger detail. Yeah. So that's not what you're in for. Sorry. There'll be plenty of nerdy baseball talk. I promise you that. You know me. That's the whole back half of this episode. We'll actually do the review that we've been saying we're going to do for 3 weeks. It's going to get a little sexy. What? But I got a banger of a DM involving Pecos League. I'll have to tell you off pod.
Okay, perfect. So, but getting more into the actual specifics of some of this here, we talked a bit about Butch being let go. Obviously, Joe's case is more in the speculative realm, or at least unverified realm, we'll say. Should that be true? Champagne, as we said, that should not be a deciding factor on firing somebody. Especially not that way. Exactly. Or at that time. Yes. Like, the kicker is, they still would have been in Chicago. So you could have just called them up to your office and fired them. Yeah. Unless it was a late night sort of thing, which has the energy. It does have some Willie Randolph energy, I will say that. Mm-hmm. Fire one off. Fire him at 2 a.m. in the morning. Feeling big late at night. Oh, you think this is about you? Yeah. Oh, you think it's about you? It's about me. No, we'll see. See what it's about. Yeah. So that's a problem there. I am interested to see of these 6 guys, how many are actually retired and how many are just like retired till June. Mm-hmm. You know, that I'm curious about. I want to know who are going to be the other guys that are going into other leagues. We know, like, just looking at transaction wise, there's like 3 or 4 guys that we don't know for certain, but we could kind of confidently like say, all right, this is our list to work off of here. Mm-hmm. So, and again, if there's any enterprising individual that wants to go and look up those transactions, you can do that. I'm not going to confirm or deny any names because, again, I don't want to put anyone in an awkward spot. But, and also, I don't know the full list. I have some good ideas and a decent lead on 2 or 3. But even still, I'm not going to say one way or the other on that. But I think that's fair. We'll see how this plays. I don't think it's the last time we talk about the story. I think certainly it's going to be interesting. Season preview season. Looks at, new management. Also next month. Yeah, good Lord. Don't even say it. I mean, I want to vom. Birthday is doomsday for me, big guy. Means we're about to be in season. I am not ready to go. But anyway, I would say, I don't know. It will have to come up more because we'll be talking about the roster and that it's different and why it's different. It's just gonna be an impossible story to ignore. And whether it's that it is a story or it's not, it could be a non-story. It could be nothing, dude. But exactly, I've seen that before. I have seen it. There's a major thing. It's a mess. It's a disaster. Something has to happen. I dig in. It feels like something. And then when it comes down to it, it's some unhappy people getting a bad read. Maybe there's a little bit of toxicness, but nothing. This doesn't feel like one of those, but hey, maybe it will be. And frankly, I hope it is. But like I said, I always hope all signs, like this, is that it's just we wound up having a bad read and we went and put too much stock into one report than another. And that's all that really happened there. And then we go back and go, you know what? We were wrong. I always hope that's the case. But like I said, I don't know. But I will say in favor of that, though, Jeff Eisman's been around for a while. So would he sign on to a group like that? Does he know? Maybe. I mean, always never underestimate the ability to not know information in any ball. You and I have found how hard it can be. Fair, but I mean, Butch has also
True, but
been
he's well
around
connected
indie
enough
ball.
that a lot of people could have been like, "Hey, dude, watch out."
Yeah, but Butch has been around indie ball in one form or another since like 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you got to imagine that like he knows enough people where some of them got to know ISOM and that word gets around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
I
thing.
mean, yeah, you're right. And frankly, I mean, I had warnings about Lexington before I went there, and I own it. I chose to ignore those warnings. I shouldn't have. So like, even I was, even people found me to seek me out. So yeah, you're right. I wouldn't doubt that if there's something going on, you might have heard about it. But
Before we move on to the other and last piece of news for the week, do you have any other real major wrap up thoughts, a summary on this?
Um, not really. On the whole, we'll need to dig in more on the Mexican League topic in general. I'm finding some difficulty. I'm tracking transactions. I'm really struggling because a lot of the Mexican League transactions don't actually show up in the transaction logs for every league or show up with any efficiency. So you got to go digging through Mexican League transactions, and those can be hard to track. So I'm a little behind there. So I'm hoping maybe get some additional sourcing. But other than that, no real news has popped out this week, if I'm honest. Yeah, just watching really closely as some of these rosters start to come together. I have a couple topics that I think we'll want to get to in the future involving. Well, I mean, I'm sorry to spitball this. I'm just like, you asked me if anything's basic. I took this as anything on your mind other than like the one other topic we got. And frankly, I'm, and maybe I'm putting this out in the podcast world to see if people are interested before I really go too far into it. I'm starting to dig into use of the inactive list in the Frontier League, because there's some weird usage of the inactive list among teams. Specifically, the one I'm seeing is Gateway. So I'm trying to dig in and see if there's anything there. Might be nothing. And then the other one that got me was the fact that they don't update transactions at all in the Atlantic League. Every Atlantic League team has most of a roster, just so you know.
Okay.
But they have like 6 transactions listed max for a team on their transactions page. It's just a nightmare. And it shouldn't be allowed to fly. It's not allowed to fly like that in the Frontier League. You have to get transactions into the league like right when they happen. And it's kind of embarrassing, and it makes everything a real mess. So I'm looking into what is going on with that. Is there anything that can be done to make that better? And yeah, and beyond that, the Atlantic League is just being eaten up by Atlantic League transactions. I mean, what I heard today was that on the one podcast episode that Rick Forney was apparently saying they've lost like 13 players from last year to Mexico. So that's something that I need to do. That is, in summary, my obsession right now is transactions between Mexico, between America, and whatever's going on in the Atlantic League, including that. So that's where my head's at. If I don't come to the party with multiple exciting topics, it's because I'm in the weeds on transaction paperwork. So if anybody sees me wandering around with my head in a bunch of paperwork, maybe ask me if I had like a glass of water lately and just check in on me, see if I'm okay. It's much appreciated.
Have you had any water lately?
Hammered that coffee pretty quick, I'll tell you that much.
That wasn't an answer.
This is whiskey.
We'll send some drumsticks and a case of water over to you.
Yeah, sticks are so good, boys.
On that note, we'll transition off Chicago, and we'll see where that story goes to. We're going to go now to a real knockout of a story, and that is New England's branding, because we finally got that today. I remember they were teasing it, and I just kind of forgot that they teased the release date, and then one day, bam, there it was, like an uppercut to the jaw. So let's describe this logo, as we always do on an audio medium, which is to say, describe logos, because that works great. And then we'll go through some of the details of it, and we'll get really into the weeds on our thoughts on it.
It feels like a podcast like game is us trying to explain. We pick an indie ball logo and have to explain it to the other person without saying like one of the words you can't say, like from the team name. The other person has to try to guess it. we'll pocket that for now, but that is definitely a slow
Right,
week type of episode.
That is so. We're still going to use that at some
That
point.
is so us. That is the most Indie Ball Report, Indie Ball Nation crossover thing possible.
We're playing like some mixture of charades and Pictionary, or it's actually kind of like that. It's like that heads up game.
You know, yeah. I feel you. Damn. Okay, that's good. Good pull on that one.
Yeah. So this logo, we got a bulldog with backwards baseball cap, in the center with crossed baseball bats behind it, but we only see the top parts of the bat. And then on either side, there is a boxing glove there. Above the dog reads knockouts with little rivets on the top and bottom of each letter. And then New England above the title of knockouts. That's just kind of a generic standard typeface on it. The significance behind the font of knockouts is as listed in the explainer graphic. The intense characters combined with solid rivets pay homage to the South Shore's industrial history. Not the only South Shore in Indie Ball now. The gloves, the boxing gloves, pay tribute to Brockton's infamous ties to the sport. I think it would be more famous than infamous.
I don't know about infamous. Easy.
Yeah. That's a negative connotation. Yeah. The ties obviously would be Rocky Marciano and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. The bulldog with fierce teeth and an intimidating face. The bulldog represents the bruiser personality of every boxing champion. There's also some other logos too, a secondary, tertiary, and word mark. The secondary would be a full-on boxer or not boxer. Well, I guess it is a boxer. It's the Bulldog Boxing. It has a little crown on it that has KO on it. It's in trunks and has a belt. That one is called the 1-2. Obviously, is boxing term. The primary alternate features are champion boxer preparing to go the distance. His belt is visibly displayed, actively ready for its defense. The crown atop his head is a spin-off of Brockton's nickname, the City of Champions. The tertiary is labeled a true KO. It is the riveted K from knockouts with the belt you'd see for a boxing match in there, and they are set up to represent a giant KO. The term KO was coined as a shortened term to the boxing phrase knockout. Obviously, we all know that. After a knockout, the bell rings 3 times to signal the match's end. Our secondary alternate combines both of these elements into one, and then the final one is just a script word mark that says champions and the city of, and the same or a similar typeface to New England above the primary logo. That one is labeled One City, One Fight. Brockton's history should never be forgotten. Today we pay homage to the one and only City of Champions, although apparently Joliet's also called the City of Champions, for what that's worth.
The last is a City of Champions there. I was trying to get Lexington to go that way too.
Yeah. The colors are named after boxing terminology, so jab, hook, overhand, bell, and canvas. Jab is essentially just a dark blue or a navy blue. Hook is like a powder blue or Carolina blue. God, I want to spit saying that term as a Duke fan. Overhand is a reddish or an orange reddish, I guess it would be, like red, orange undertones. You get what I'm going for here. Bell kind of has a mustard yellow look to it. It's like an off yellow, I guess. And then canvas is like a reddish white, an off white kind of thing. There's some other ones, some other secondary logos or colors in there as well, but those we don't know what they actually are. They just have the fancy boxing terminology that's in the press release that are in there. So that just about covers all of it. Do you have any real thoughts on this logo? Yes, no, maybe.
Quick thing is I have a confession to start things, which is
what is it, my son?
Nice. I caught that. I caught the yes, no, maybe. Can you repeat the question? Malcolm. Frankie Muniz, shout out to his NASCAR career. So I will confess, first of all, that I have lots of thoughts on logos while not necessarily being the best logo guy, because I was thinking about how a cool like alternate or logo for this team would be like maybe if you're going the dog thing, like the dog's arm like flexed like a boxer would with like the glove, and then like Teo like right on the muscle tattooed there, like around the bicep. Yeah, and then I don't know. Have you watched Always Sunny?
A little bit, not much.
Where there's a scene where they're trying just to meet some guys to be friends with, and they have like the flexing thing, and then they realize it doesn't look like that at all. Looks a little bit phallic, and I was like, oh, that's just what I'm describing. That is almost got a not to jump on the Chicago Dogs territory. Almost got a wiener on the hat there. So yeah, I was like, maybe not. So yeah, all in all, I should shut up. But I will say, I mean, this is fine. I think it's good. Frankly, Jackie, my wife's, her first reaction was, oh, it's cute. I like the dog. And like, dude, I hate to say it. That's a lot. That's most of what you're going for. Oh, it's cute. I'd buy a shirt with that on it,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's really nice. I'm going to be interested to see when these uniforms get announced. And I should say another nice little point about this Frontier League page article is it mentions that they're going to have 4 uniforms, a home alternate, a road alternate, and then a home and road primary. So I'm interested to see what they look like. I think there's some real potential here. I hope to God we don't have a powder blue logo because our jersey set, because I think they've been overdone.
Yeah, it's overdone.
Yeah.
That dark color, by the way, could be a cool top color. Where I was even thinking going to canvas color instead of just a white home jersey.
That's what I was thinking. The canvas is like a road white could be really
Phillies have the off whites they wear on like Sunday day game or like day home games, and they're actually
Cleveland had those too for a little bit, didn't they?
It's not a bad look, man. I would consider, especially for like an old school town, kind of like Brockton up in New Hampshire, like or not New England. Like that would be a vibe.
Brockton's in Massachusetts, sir.
Yeah, no, that wasn't.
Please get your New England states correctly.
My best friend, he's living up in New Hampshire right now, and I'm trying to talk him back down from it. So there's been a lot of New Hampshire talk lately in my life.
New England is very nice. It's a very nice part of the country.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm making the pitch. Well, it's like February and March up there.
Season of the Six.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to. Man, it's just it's tough. I like it. I think this is a good logo. Honestly, it's been such a sloppy rollout that I was kind of like, I don't know if they're gonna be able to land this plane. Honestly, I think it's been good, and I think that's a good. They needed a win, and I think that this has been a win so far. So let's see if they continue it. This is an organization I'm rooting for and a community I'm rooting for. I've been kind of negative, but it's because they've not done a lot right so far. But this has been very alert and very organized and very. This has felt like the first thing from them where I'm like, okay, like they went through the proper channels and did this right. So I'm feeling good about that. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
This was good enough that I went, maybe they'll be okay.
Yeah. I do like the little outline of like a spike collar with the powder blue outline. I do think that's kind of cool. I'm not always huge on having like a word mark and a primary. I kind of just like the primary in there, but I'm open to it still. Overall, I think it's pretty solid. I do like it. Like you said, I think it sells merchandise. I could see getting a shirt with this on it, or depending on what the hats look like, I could go for a hat with this. I do think there is a lot, like I said, there's a lot of that kind of powdery blue. I'm not huge on this, like, what do they call it again? I'll use the term they used. I'm not big on this hook color. It does seem to be a little overpowering in the main. I would have liked to see a little bit of change up there. Maybe they tried it and it just didn't look good, but I'd be interested in seeing some other possibilities on that. But that's really my only critique. I think it's a solid logo, especially given the current style of design, which is not my most favorite because I prefer more of a classic, timeless kind of look. And I'm not necessarily sure that's what this is, but I also don't think
it's a Sunday morning cartoon vibe or Saturday morning cartoon vibe.
Yeah, a little bit. It's way better than I said about the Evansville thing. I still defend that Evansville Otter looks like a Nick Jr. cartoon, and I'll go to my grave.
I disagree with you, but I understand where you're coming from.
So, I think of this current era of design style for logos, it's definitely up there as far as ones I really like. I will say some of these secondary ones, I think the KO, I don't know how I feel about the KO. I feels a little bit much. I do like the little dog here. I think the little dog secondary logo could be kind of cool. And the City of Champions script, I think it's just kind of nice to have. I will say I wish they would have rolled it out a little bit better than the way they did. I think that's a fair
Yeah, that's fair.
critique. But, that said, I always thought what would have been cool is if they would have been able to do like some sort of partnership with like, I don't know, a local like gastro pub or tavern or something like that, and do like either an unveil party as part of a watch party thing for something. Like being that they're New England, one of the big things for New England is the Bean Pot tournament. So while they were playing the Bean Pot, obviously you picked the BCBU game. You could have had a watch party for that, and then during, say, the first or second intermission, either unveiled the jerseys or unveiled the logos. And I think that would have been really cool. And it would have been a great way to engage the community. You could have done a whole big event around it, and it would have been a nice thing to see. Maybe you could still swing something like that for the jersey reveal, because it says in the coming weeks. And obviously, now that we're in March, we're really in the heart of like big sporting event season. So you can go ahead and make something work, maybe with March Madness as like a watch party for a Final Four thing. Obviously, that's a little bit more very beginning of April, so maybe that's a little later than you'd like to do for an unveil, but still, it's something you could do. And I just would like to see a larger community event where you get people in the community to go and show up for this. Even if it is more, I don't want to say a free event, but a low cost event that you got to eat a loss on to engage the community and have an opportunity to sell some merchandise at the event, get people some ticket sales and whatnot going. Overall, I think that'd be a net positive decision to try and do.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I'm not gonna. I almost don't have anything to add. You kind of said exactly what I thought. Yeah. But other than that, I think it's solid.
Yeah.
Also, I've landed on one other topic I have for you that before we fully hit. It's a very quick one, but I'm just gonna say it now before we say I got one before you fully transition to the South preview or review, whatever the hell.
Yes.
So sorry. Are we good on the?
I mean, the only other
done. I literally thought I was going to forget it. It's like blah.
Yeah, like the only thing I would say is one other thing I thought that would be kind of cool is if they would have done like a video unveil and maybe had like a local celeb or the guy that you want to make the face of your organization, outward face, kind of like the Ogden owner doing the videos and stuff. Have them walk around Brockton and the greater New England region, going to like sites that mean something, sites that relate to the team brand and whatnot. And then if possible, and you still had like the old gym that they referenced here, like the trainers that were the big deal out there. If that gym still exists, Peronelli, or Petronelli, if that gym was still around, have like the video end with, so now it's time to, like get in the fight or something like that. Have them walk into the gym and either then go to a close up on the door. When the door swings shut, that's where the logo is. As you went through the whole thing of explaining it, or you could just tilt the camera up and have like a banner there with the logo and the word marker and all that there. And then you could even repurpose that banner if you wanted to do it physically, as opposed to just adding in the logos and stuff in the post by putting that up in the stadium and making it a thing. So I thought that could have been kind of cool. Obviously, I don't know how much staff they have on. Maybe that just wasn't possible. And obviously, interns really aren't a thing in the winter for baseball teams, even though there's enough colleges in New England. I'm sure you could have gotten one or two to run a media thing. But still, I think that could have been kind of cool. Probably could have gotten some play out of it. And if you keep this video around a minute or so, you could put it up on like TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and that's an Instagram reel as well. That's going to get some play and some share and whatnot. So I thought that could have been kind of cool. Obviously some work, but could have been kind of cool.
There's a lot of fun stuff they could do with the aesthetics here with the boxing theme. Hopefully they start to kind of get that worked out and figure out. Hopefully whatever process they seem to go through that felt pretty legitimate with this.
Yeah.
Also was maybe with some branding company or some brand marketing or branding people who know what they're doing and gave them some like thoughts to carry forward. Even like just ballpark design stuff. Like I'm thinking like railings could be painted to look more like the ropes around a boxing ring. Like there's tie-ins all over the place that you can be like, oh, it's a cool, like immersive brand that actually is like when you bring it into everything you do, while it sounds small, we're talking paint jobs on railings, like it does, you buy in more on the brand and you can then be like, oh, this is who we are. And you actually buy it because you can see it's like kind of identified and hinted to and reflected everywhere. So I'm hoping they don't go halfway with it. I'm hoping they really, they talk about how this is the identity of the city, but like then I hope they embrace it like that, because this does seem like a good start. So let's see where they end up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. What was the story you wanted to talk about?
This is somewhat circling back on my point of frustration with the Atlantic League and transactions, but I will point out that over the past week or so, Hagerstown's brought in Yuri Perez, Joe Palumbo, Parker Markel, and then on more familiar terms, Wellington Dotel, Abietal Avellino, Jose Lopez, and none of those are on the transaction list. It's ridiculous. But they posted, and I might see it on their Twitter, they've posted recently another picture of the construction going at the ballpark.
Okay.
What's your vibe? Is it feeling behind? It's like 2 months out from opening day, less.
Very well could be. Hold on. I have it in a different thing, bookmarked the cam of it.
And while you're looking,
look at that.
I'll just say I've talked to about 4 different construction people, one of whom is actually familiar with the site.
Okay.
And so far, 2 of them, including the guy that is familiar with the site, were like, it feels behind. Like, this is not where it should be based on where opening day is. However,
I'm looking at this now. Yeah, I see what he's getting at.
Works hands-on with ballparks. I'm like, it's not too crazy. It's not. That doesn't raise any red flags. So it's a split on it, which is not what I want to hear, but I'm tempted to believe it's okay. Because I don't know if they'd be sharing pictures of it if it was behind. I remember because the Lexington field was behind because of bad weather all off season. And we were like, we're not posting pictures of the turf updates anymore.
All right.
So
yeah, are you looking at the live feed of it right now?
I'm not. I was just looking at something they posted on Twitter about a week ago. Okay. But
and I'll just share it. It'll be maybe easier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Like, that's where we're at.
I mean, seats, there are no seats, but seats aren't that big of a project. The video board goes in about.
You got the building up right here.
Building's up.
Yeah. Got board up.
Turf is probably can go in about a week. It should be about 3 weeks. Yeah. Also, if you're putting turf in, please, begging you, have some games on it before you put your professional players on it.
Yeah.
Like, right, just trust me.
Right here, so need some work done.
Probably, maybe. No, that's not gonna be the bullpen. You wouldn't have a cement wall there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what that's gonna be. Is that gonna be stands? No way.
No,
that's not stands.
No, the concourse off right here. Yeah.
So it feels like maybe a picnic area type thing. Not literally. Maybe not big. You know,
it would be a group sale area. It could also just be a storage thing. Because what's going right here. Enthralling podcast content, by the way.
Sorry. Yeah, it just, you guys can check it out yourselves. Yeah. But it is interesting to watch. And I've had
that's probably
to have a couple of people be like, I don't know about it, and a couple of people saying it's fine. It's just interesting. But
look at these guys. Look at these guys. Look.
Do their work. I know it's fun watching you guys working.
Look at them doing a job. Yeah, got the foul pole over here. Yeah.
Foul pole's up. I think that's cool, by the way. Putting up the foul pole early is great.
Yeah. Go ahead. Like, that's how they should say.
Right here, baby.
Run a flag up on the foul pole every day, so that way we can tell where the progress is.
Honestly, not
dude. Bad. I implore anyone building a ballpark. What would be awesome is if you raise a flag further up on the flagpole, the closer you get to completion. So it's almost like a progress bar.
Yeah, I mean, I do those for all my spreadsheets so I can track stuff because it makes me feel better. So yeah, I vouch for the idea.
Like, that'd be kind of cool. Plus, then you can make it a whole big ceremony thing at the end too, where it's like we're gonna finish raising the thing, and then boom.
Just a W flag, like it's the Cubs. Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah, I'm stealing that a little bit, but very Chicago.
No, I mean, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
I think it's a good concept.
Yeah. Before we do the South review, because I think the South review is actually going to be relatively quick. Because I mean, 3 teams suck, 2 teams are good. I just want to throw it because I did see it this morning, and we'll talk about more in depth next week. Any real thoughts on those Oakland jerseys? You seem confused as though you haven't seen it.
I gotta check. I'm trying to. It didn't really strike me at first, and I kind of had to keep moving because I was busy. But
I'll be honest, I'm just okay on it. And I do find it funny how everyone took the AAA announcement to be like, oh my God, they're going to play AAA ball. And I'm thinking, oh, it's cool. They got AAA, like the car company sponsorship.
Yeah.
Because
I just deeply do not like
those ads,
grabbing
man.
Basically. Oh no, whatever. I mean, it's any ball. It is what it is. But like
I
grabbing
get it, but the red ad on that jersey just like, oh
it does
God, it looks so bad. At least make it green.
Because you have a white on the green, you have the white. That's why you should on white on just about everything, and you have it on the yellow too. I get you can't do the white on the other one, but you have to. I would find it unlikely they don't have a black logo they can run with.
And they got the other ad on the arm. At least it looks like an ad on the arm. The BA thing.
Yeah,
I think it's like an art logo or something.
Oh man, it's so weird grabbing the A's colors. I don't
basically
know.
It's basically A's jerseys, right?
Like, it is. They're A's jerseys. They look like,
especially the pullover.
Like
the pullover is really bad.
A's jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean the pullover, the logo underneath Oakland is like the generic logo you get in Allen Park baseball.
Yeah. It really is.
Honestly, it gives me genomes vibes.
So the white one, at least I'm okay on. That looks all right. Although again, that AAA logo, man, it chaps my ass.
Let's see.
Although I will say, someone under the reveal on Twitter said, wow, the Ballers got a jersey sponsor before the A's. And I'm thinking, that's not the flex you think it is. Like, are we like, who's watching their favorite team and being like, oh shit, boys, MetLife sponsoring the boys this year. Let's go.
We're in. We made it.
Yeah, we're going to go 52 and 110, but we got MetLife on the squad. Like, God, get the hell out of here. I don't want an ad on any jersey. They're evil and awful. Oh my God, yes.
Yep. Yeah. It's the if you look at the Genome's word mark, the baseball logo in the middle is basically the same, but it's because it's generic logo. There wasn't a lot of thought in the Genome's logos.
Hey, look, there's Scrappy's little card there.
Yo, love Scrappy, man. I go to war for her. This is a pro Scrappy Hopkins pod.
Many would say the best female player in the history of the league.
Or I didn't make that one. I made the other one. No, wait, I made this one. I literally made this book. It's so
weird, shameless plug from Ryan to be like, oh yeah, look at the one I made.
The baseball's in our DNA. The baseball in our DNA. That was Jackie.
Oh wow. I hope she got paid for that. So.
Bro, no, of course not. I barely got paid for that. Fashion or DNA also stole that one. I was pretty happy about it. Anyway.
So let's go ahead and stop talking about Ryan's vanity project to talk about the team that replaced his vanity project in the South Division review.
Yeah, man. I'm about it. I'll let you take lead here. I don't know how you want to go about this, so I'll just sort of let you roll. I will say in advance, sorry for talking about your team as much.
Yeah, I guess I'll just roll through it kind of the same way we did it last time. Go over some basic ground facts, and then we could just kind of take it in whatever direction.
The Lancaster Barnstormers, because apparently that's what we did.
Oh yeah, discuss that very briefly. The
person who commented that we didn't talk about the Barnstormers
didn't comment, gave a 1-star review.
That's right. Wasn't necessarily wrong. I get it, but you have to understand that Barnstormers review was basically Barnstormers are still very good at baseball. Second half Stormers are a legitimate issue. And then it turned to talk about other teams. So it's more like, what do these other teams have to do to catch the Barnstormers? Like, the Barnstormers are what they are. Same coaching staff, going to be a lot of the same players. Like, we know this. It's a review, not a preview. They didn't do anything they didn't do the year before. So we need to talk about, can the Ducks figure it out with Lou in charge and chase them down? What went wrong for them and the other teams this year that didn't last year? So if you're not happy about it, well, then maybe your team should have done something different than they did last year, but they did the same thing and it was win a championship. Congrats. Sorry.
Yeah, like we talked about them. We mentioned that. Yeah, that, and also they were a bit upset the grade we gave Ross Peoples in the manager review, which again, I'll defend because I believe it was a B. It was either B or B plus, but I'm pretty sure it was B.
Which is pretty good considering your teams only showed up for half a season 2 years.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say.
Said it.
Like, yeah, they showed up for the half of the season that matters. And yeah, if you're only going to do half the work, pick the half that counts.
Oh, facts.
So, like, look, I'm not hating on that, but like at the same point in time, you can't expect me to give them the same grade that I would give like Jamie Keefe just because you won 2 championships, one of which you probably wouldn't have won if Gastonia had gotten their shit together off the field. So, just saying.
Facts. I mean, yeah, I think you nailed it. It is what it is.
That beat is
it's a very impressive run. It's it's back-to-back championships and maybe the most difficult any league to win.
Yeah.
So, we say we will. Only 40% of the teams make the playoffs. So we talk about hardest to make it out of the Frontier. True, but not easy to make it in the Atlantic.
Yeah, which I will say though, they do benefit from the half system.
Oh yeah.
If they didn't have the half, I think that's part of our reasoning why that B was there. If you had
that's the 4th place team in the North Division if there were no halves in 2023.
Yeah. So,
and I believe 2022, I'm pulling it right now, they were a 2nd place team. So and they would have made the wild card, but
fair. Okay, so they has one.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just saying, now if they get into the playoffs again, if we make the colossally dumb decision to do that report card again, then we'll revisit it and I'll be way more open to upgrade it to a B plus, maybe an A minus. But look, I need to see a little bit more. I'll put it like this. If we gave Mike Pinto a B plus, Ross Peoples getting a B is fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there we go. Now update your one.
And I'll say the other thing too. Yeah, I sat in your ballpark in 2021 while people were openly yelling that Ross needed to lose his job. I heard it multiple times. So settle down like you weren't calling for his job 2 years ago.
Now that we've addressed that. All right. So ALPB South, High Point, best record, 78 and 46. 41-22 in the first half, 37 and 24 in the second half, plus 7 overall in the record. So very good. Gastonia, 79 and 47. Same record as High Point in the first half, second half, 1 more win, 1 more loss. 2 more games played. They get screwed because winning percentage is a thing. And that was a worse year for them somehow with 9 fewer victories. But still, having the most victories, I believe, in the league, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Or would they be second? I'm pretty sure they'd be first.
Run that question by me one more time because I feel like I got confused in the middle.
I already can get the answer, so...
It was High Point had the best win percentage in the league.
Yeah, but
there was question marks around that.
Yeah, Gastonia had the most wins.
And there was that sketchy rain out at the end.
Yeah. So there was that. Then, after you get these 2 near 80-win teams, there's a little bit of a drop-off. Charleston would be 3rd overall,
23 games, dude. That's crazy to see, isn't it?
Yeah, 56 and 70. It is still 3 more wins than they had the year prior, though. I had 24 and 39 in the first half, and then 32 and 31 in the second half. If I have that written down correctly.
Yeah.
And then Spire City and Lexington, damn near identical records. Spire City, 49 and 74, 26 and 37 in the first half, 23 and 37 in the second half, and that's 18 fewer than the year prior. However, the year prior they were, what team were they?
Oh, the genomes, baby.
There we go. I've sent
in their DNA.
Yeah.
Oh boy! Shout out COVID testing if you missed that gift.
Lexington's the last team, 49-75, 31 and 32 in the first half. And then they had a beautiful second half under Barry Lions of 18 and 43, 7 wins fewer than the year prior. High Point won the first half. Gastonia won the second half. Gastonia wound up going to the championship series to lose to those aforementioned Barnstormers. That's what we have here. Now,
every once in a while, I'm just absolutely smacked in the teeth by that start of the second half that Lexington had. I forgot that I always forget it happened, but good Lord. I mean, what? So I'm trying to think. I was 62 games in that half started, I think. Something like that. What was that first half record? I'm sorry, man.
For Lexington?
Yes.
31
30,
and 32.
Oh, all right. Gross. So from there, they ended up, oh man, what? 2-18 start? I think a 2-18 start to the first half from there.
It's pretty
because they were 31 and 32, and then a few weeks later they were 33 and 50. At their low, they bottomed out at a 34 and 56. So that was a 3 and 24 run to start the second half. Goodness, dude, 3 and 24. I don't know why. I said it once and I saw it in my head as like in the standings, a 3 and 24, and I was like, oh my god. There's some good boys on that team, by the way. Like, I don't want to trash those guys. I think they were in a bad situation, but and we talk a lot about what Gastonia was dealing with, but it seems Lexington had a similar situation with, how little leagues weren't getting paid out money, and the team got sold after the season. So there's something.
I mean that's
boy, and we learned more and more about the manager situation there too, and that was a bad deal.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing was just a rushed operation that it felt like it was a sale that got done hastily, and it was ownership that walked into a situation that didn't either realize or didn't appreciate how bad it was. Mm-hmm. And then it became evident clearly on, and then it all just kind of came apart. And unlike Gastonia, it wasn't as public.
Yes. Yeah. Gastonia really had quite a run to start the year, too. I'm just sort of reviewing the schedules real quick before we get into specifics on it. I mean, boy, they were 40 and 18 at one point. Good Lord. Yikes. I know. How about it? 31 and 13, 32 and 30 and 13 actually at one point too. Dang, that's a run. But 79-47, and they had to come on strong at the end to make that work, and they did. High Point, man.
Yeah, let's go to High Point actually, because
let's talk High Point, because High Point's interesting to me because they're so good constantly and they fall short constantly, and it's confusing.
That's the thing, like, and I can see why some people would be annoyed that we rank Jamie Keefe an A-. Because like they don't win, but like they always are competitive. They're always in the playoffs. They're always doing good. Fourth year from this past year. And I kind of had them both as like a good batting team and a good pitching team where they excelled at both areas. Like they were good at both of them. And it's just a complete team. And I don't know what they need to get over the hump. It just feels like they have a bad series at the wrong time to have a bad series.
They do. It's so funny. You're right. I mean, they opened the season 16-3. They barely won the first half. They needed a Gastonia collapse to make it happen. Remember, they came surging back. I think got them on last day of the season. Last day, I think they beat Gastonia for it. Remember, they played each other for it.
Yeah, and that one got overlooked because York completed a historic collapse on that front.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Those jabronis.
Yeah, man. That was a hell of a run, actually, now I think about it. Not think about it, but you forget a lot happened. But I mean, 41 and 22, something like that in the first half. They were both same winning percentage, I think, over their first 63. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, man, that's something like. And the thing is, too, I don't think we appreciated that Gastonia High Point first half thing as much because we all both understood like whichever one doesn't get it now is going to get it later.
Right, and that's part of the issue with 2F system is seeing how bad the other three teams were. It really sucked the drama out of the situation. I mean, first half we're looking at about 651 winning percentage for both teams over their first 63. Nobody else was above 500 in the division. One team was below 400. The other team was close to below 400. So no one was competitive other than that. So yeah, it does suck the drama out of it a little bit. It's mainly because even that it added drama a little bit to the north because you knew right away no one was going to catch them. So it had to be like, if Gastonia doesn't win the division, like there's no wild card, you better go get it. So that's, I guess, funny, but I don't know.
But it also kind of, it makes you think about the whole division as a whole because now you have three teams that are just terrible. So are we beating up on bad teams, right? I mean, like we're going to get into these other three. I have no problem saying that Charleston, Lexington, and Spire City were bad teams. I mean, like I have all of them graded as either bad to meh in each of those categories. Like, yeah, because like Charleston, I have meh pitching, bad batting. Invert that for Spire City, meh batting, bad pitching. and Lexington just bad.
That's a fair assessment. We should use that scale more often.
I think it's actually pretty spot on, but
yeah, I mean,
so, and obviously
I'm just sort of go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna just say, like, obviously that kind of criticism is more valid when you're only playing your division more, but even still, it's like, look, you're beating up on some really garbo teams here. Are you really like this, or is it just that, like, you're not being tested? No, I think the answer is they're both really like that, because when they played each other, it was, some heavyweight bouts between High Point and Gastonia, and then against the North. I would love to know what their record was against the North.
I can actually do pretty well with that. Just you keep working, I got you.
Yeah, it's because, like, if their record was positive till even just about 500, that tells me, okay, then they're not just beating up on bad teams. They're legitimately good teams. It's just, I don't really know what to say. But yeah, the whole way that, like, the oil separated from the water in this division makes it both interesting and not interesting to talk about. Because you wonder, like, how do you have three just horribly mismanaged situations or just dud years, and then two studs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does not feel spectacular. And it sucks. It does kind of take the wind out of it a little bit, because you want to be like, damn, like, what a treat that was.
Yeah.
To have those two teams in that division, but it kind of isn't that. It kind of hasn't felt that way, at least. And, and then it was also sort of overshadowed by the drama around Gastonia. Almost takes it away from High Point a little bit in a way they don't deserve. Because it throws the asterisk on it. It's like, well, every team in your league sucked, and the other team that didn't suck was, on the verge of collapse the entire time. Which, again, that's not actually how I feel, but I do feel like sometimes that's the way it's perceived, which is unfortunate. Let me run the winning percentage on these. This is actually some interesting finding here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
math is so hard sometimes. So I got High Point at a 541 winning percentage against the North Division, but I got Gastonia at 667, a 44-22 against the North. Now they did. I'm trying to look. They really didn't play Staten Island much, I don't think. Sorry, Staten Island, but that's kind of the way you gotta look at it. But that is interesting, huh? Sorry, but so they did. I mean, look, if you're doubting it, they showed up. They both did well, but boy, I guess Sony really do work.
Yeah, they just. Damn. Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, I guess it really does prove that they were just that good of a team.
Honestly, they were legit, both of them, frankly. They did. Gastonia did beat the hell out of the Fairy Hawks. Actually, that did happen. I remember this now. So, they went like 9-1 against them, I think.
Okay.
Oof.
I wanted to take us off track very briefly to point out one very important thing here, because I got a promotional email or text rather from the Lehigh Valley Phantoms saying that they have two tickets for $29. That's a deal for all these March home gates. And I can confirm to you that the first Friday of every month through the first period, they have dollar dogs.
Hey, America.
Yep. And also happy hour Wednesday, Yuengling or Miller Lite, $2 every Wednesday game.
I was going to say, I think I might have a hookup for some sweet games at Philly, so I'll have to keep you in the loop on that one. But anyway, I'm good to see a team that, respects the American traditions. I'll point this out. I kind of have a running list of, this is a weird way to classify this. I get that. But I kind of keep a running list of guys that I'm just like solidly above average, ones that you look at on a roster and you're like, that's a plus on the roster. Yeah. And usually, I mean, there are less of those than there are not those. So we're talking about dudes and guys. But I will say, I mean, among these teams, Lexington throughout the year of their regulars had about 7 of those guys I would call a plus player. Okay. Charleston, Spire City both had 9, and then High Point and Gastonia had 14 for High Point and 16 for Gastonia. Just sort of doing a quick look through. Like, it's a difference. That's a roster.
It's a little bit different.
And we don't talk about High Point's, offense as much, and they did not. The gap was offensively, but Ben Aklinski, DJ Burt, Ryan Grochon,
These are some
Andrew
boys.
Wheel, Michael Russell, John Nagowski. Like, damn, son.
Yeah, these are some guys.
Bryce Hensley had a low key year, by the way.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that, but yeah, it didn't look good on paper, but like the peripherals were good. What Luke hadn't lead if he comes back, which I think he is every year. Went through 56 innings, and the ERA wasn't good, but everything else around it suggests he should have had a better year. So watch Bryce, watch my guy.
He's going to be just. I was trying to figure out a way to quickly make a joke about music and baseball at the same time.
Well,
Rocking on off the field.
There you go. Nice.
All right, I'll take it. It's not my best work, but it's good enough.
I've seen worse. Yeah, but I mean, what's the thing? What do you want to hit on here so we can kind of follow a path? Because right now my brain's just grabbing things and saying them. So that's not really much.
I'm kind of at the same point here because like the thing that I keep coming back to is like I feel like nobody really exceeded expectations in this division, but everybody just about met them. Like High Point and Gaston were good like we expected them to be. Charleston and Lexington were bad like they were expected to be. Although admittedly in the preview I said Charleston I could just see falling ass backwards into the playoff, which, in theory, there was an outside shot of that, extremely outside, but there was an outside shot of it in the end, but didn't work out. And then the only one that failed to meet it was Spire, because everybody except for myself, I want to point that out, was really high on Spire City, and they just failed to launch. So, I guess that's kind of like the main takeaway here. We didn't really talk about too many specifics with like Charleston, for example. But the thing is, like, a lot of these teams are just like, it wasn't good. They didn't get the batting. They didn't get the pitching. They didn't get whatever they needed. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of
like I hate to just like
isn't much else to say.
I hate to dumb down the analysis and whatnot. Like I really do, but. That is really what it comes down to. Like, straight up. They just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Like, I could go into more detail about what particularly they didn't get, but they didn't get it.
I can give a little more where I really felt there was a difference, I think, was depth, which is always a thing. I think a lot of the teams, especially in the Atlantic League, will find this. I think Pioneer League are more likely to find something where one team is just completely outgunned on a talent level. Just straight up. There's not much they can do. I think here in the Atlantic League, where there's more high profile names, it's the first stopping point for a lot of the like high talent guys. You start to see a bigger fall off on the back end of lineups. You start to see a bigger fall off on, your backups, who your backup catcher is, your middle relief and late game bullpen guys. I think that's where you really start to see some holes open up. And like the big one I'm looking at, a lot of times like fourth or fifth starter. Like realistically, if you have between your fourth and fifth starter compared to your rival, you have one that it kind of hangs with your rival's fourth or fifth starter and one that's just behind and just probably shouldn't be a starter in this league.
Yeah.
If you lose that game, a third of the time and the other team is 500, you're losing like 8 extra games throughout the year. Like it's weird to think about, but like if you have a guy who's just costing you roughly 17% of his starts more than, the other team, like that right there is going to bite you. You're going to be losing, about a week's worth of games over the year to your rival if they just have an average guy who can hang. And that's where you start to get it. I mean, if you look at Lexington's starting rotation right now, from last year rather, I mean, Eichhoff was there, but he came and went. None of those guys I would call like above average contributors were starting pitchers. They had 4 solid relievers throughout the year.
Well, does that go back to just to kind of cut in the experience factor on a lot of the managers on this front there, where Jamie's been doing this a while, Goose's been doing this a while, Billy's been around the game for a bit, but he hasn't been a head manager for that long. So that's a strike against Charleston. Mark's been around for a while, but he's bounced around to like 3 different teams in 3 different years. And again, I don't know how much more managing experience he has outside of this recent little run. So that could be a strike against. Barry Lyons, obviously new to the whole indie ball thing, so I don't have much of an expectation for him to have a built-up recruiting network. So that's a strike against there. And so it comes down to, off the bat, failure to build a good roster. And then it really fell apart when you couldn't find replacements for guys as they started to either be released or purchased.
Yeah, it's fair. And it's also, it's such a big ask to put together an entire roster. Like, it's so hard because I look at it, if we even stick to that, Spire City, I would say, had 4 good starters throughout the year.
Yeah.
But, and we saw that, but their offense was soft at times, and they had maybe one good reliever throughout the year that I would call consistently good, like a plus reliever compared to the league. And he was he only pitched part of the year as Brady Feigl. And he also, by the way, to his credit, I would call him a plus for Lexington. So for 2 different teams, he popped up on my list as like a plus guy. So shout out to Brady. But yeah, I mean, Lexington, I don't think they had a good starter among the mix. If you look at like the bats on Lexington, Connor Owings, Thomas Dillard, JC Encarnacion, but like that, all of them had the sort of, I don't know. It's just, it is. That's what it is. I think you did summarize it well, which is there were 2 front offices that felt like professional front offices throughout this year who supported their managers who were the right guy in the right spot. And it was Gastonia and it was High Point.
Yeah.
And those were teams that got the results. Those were teams that had the best roster. And there was no mystery to it. Spire City was obviously a weird in between. Mark's good at what he does, but it's hard to bring guys into an operation like that. It's hard to make player to be named later deals when you aren't going to be around later. Lexington was Lexington. Charleston had it together, but Charleston's offense, I mean, we know there were some always weird situations in Charleston. We don't talk enough about how bad that offense was. I mean, they had Bobby Bradley, Dwight Smith Jr., and poor Troy Bacon and Joe Testa and them were just going out there and hoping, and they get up 3 runs, like, well, ball game. Like, that's kind of what it was. It was one of the most irrelevant offenses I've seen in a minute.
I really feel bad for Chansky.
Yeah, and they put up more runs per game as Staten Island and Lexington, but like Lexington was killed by that weird stretch they had. Then they were fine, kind of other than that. Charleston was just throughout the year scoring like 3 or 4 runs per game only. They kind of kicked it up a little bit toward the end of the year, but there was a solid part of this year where you're just like, dude, what are we doing? And it's weird to see, but I don't know. Now I think that gets fixed this year. That's your silver lining for Charleston, because PJ recruits hitters like nobody I've ever met. If he can keep some of those bullpen and starting pitchers, that'll be a gift, because he has not, so far looking at PJ. I know this is not a preview, but I'm trying to give I've just dumped on Charleston quite a bit, so I'm trying to give them a spin.
I'm trying to give
PJ's going to bring hitters. PJ's going to bring your hitters. It's going to be the question of, can he keep it? Because when he went to Lexington, he did not have a pitching staff, and I love PJ. He's not as good at bringing in pitching. I don't think it's a priority to him typically. And then he went to New Jersey, where he could bring his hitters again, but good luck recruiting pitching to that ballpark.
Yeah.
So this is his first shot to maybe also be given a pitching staff before that actually pre-exists. We don't have to find one from scratch to compete at Atlantic League level, which is a nightmare. So he has a better shot than he has. So I would look for Charleston to be a little dangerous, but I don't know. Lexington gets it together this year. I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, they're going through a lot of change, and honestly, I think just getting it together off the field is a victory for Lexington. And
Gastonia, I think, will be okay. I think Gastonia and High Point are the 2 most likely teams to keep last year going. I think this year should be more competitive in the league, though, because I think Spire City's gone, Southern Maryland's in, huge.
That changes it all. Yeah,
dude, and Charleston being in, Lexington could get this could be a bad year for Lexington. That's not probably talked about enough, that this could be really brutal, because they're not retaining many guys. They don't have many guys to retain. Frankly, as I said, they had 6 above average players last year, and I think 3 of them were gone at the end of the year. Dude, the 7 above average guys, 3 of them were still around at the end of the year. I don't see a world where they have an easy time putting this together. And that's not even a negative comment. I know we have hesitation on the coaching staff over there, but I think there are some good pieces there. Mikey Reynolds, shout out, by the way. He's over there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like Mikey.
I love Mikey. Who doesn't? But I do
Makes
worry
sense with
that,
Justin Fiorella as the GM that Mikey would go over there, though.
hell yeah. No, and that's a good sign, by the way, they're letting Justin do things. So I do trust Justin. I think he was handcuffed by the new ownership. I think Justin is probably a great move for them. I don't know him personally, but I hear good things. So
yeah, no, I've met him a couple times. He busted my balls about
letting him
once.
cook is probably a good thing. That's probably tracks it, but he should have. But I just worry that Boy is an uphill battle to compete in that league next year. This could be there is potential for this to be the most loaded division in the Atlantic League in a very long time. Certainly in the era of 5-team divisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't really
argue. There was
a
point last year where we thought the Atlantic League North was the best division in Indie Ball. Because remember, Staten Island got hot for a bit there, and we were like, "Oh, this
was like, my boys are coming in," and then
Staten Island was hot for a minute with
York was doing good.
York was running. Long Island was Long Island.
Oh yeah,
36 games in to the season. The average winning percentage in the Atlantic League North last year was .693. The average winning percentage in the Atlantic League South was .497. With, if you don't include our 2 stars of the show, it was a .362 winning percentage average between the bottom 3 teams.
Some boys are carrying there.
That's tough. They were the 3 worst teams in the league. And I think the 2 best by winning percentage. Yep, they were. Almost the entire year. Good Lord. Actually, basically the entire year. Man.
Yeah. The thing is, we have no real...
yeah.
I think we're starting to go around in circles on it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So,
I mean, it wasn't that in depth. We didn't really go through rosters, but it was hard to go through rosters because what are we going to say? The entire High Point roster was nasty. The entire Gastonia roster was nasty. And there were some stars of the show in Charleston, Lexington, Spire City, but they didn't have support. I mean, that kind of is what it is. And that's what we're looking at and who might be able to fix it. Southern, obviously, Spire City is a different conversation, but that's where we're at. So sorry if we didn't name as many players who want us to name in this one, but like, it's hard to, because the 2 teams that really deserve named players, it's too many to get into. And then the other teams, it's like these guys, but also it was kind of not relevant. So it's tough.
Exactly. So that just about does for the review of the Atlantic League. I guess review of the American Association is up next. Want to do the American Association East? That way we can talk more about Chicago?
Yeah, dude. Let's stay on theme. I'm cool with that one. So
all right.
We'll do that.
American Association East next week. We'll see if we have an interview. I don't know if we will. I do know that there is supposed to be one the week after, if I'm right. So we will see. We just got 1 or 2 things to hammer out there, but we should have one within the next 2 weeks, and then one shortly thereafter too. So you'll know when we know. So that's all there is to it. Plugs. I guess you could do plugs, and then I could do plugs, and then we can leave.
Yeah. Indie Ball Nation, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and keep an eye out. Hopefully you should get some stuff posted. I would say that, but like, as I said, I just had a bunch of stuff and then I got a, hey, maybe don't post that yet on it. I was like, okay. So I don't know anymore. Apparently my life is on my own. I'm in pain all the time. Anyway.
Okay. Okay.
What a pod.
This is high level stuff here. Indie Ball Pod on Twitter, Indie Ball Report everywhere else. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to give up my crusade on putting up off-season content because I just don't know if that's going to happen.
It's so hard to do, dude. Because it's supposed to be easy, but then it's been such a busy off-season. It's been crazy this year.
It's partially that too. And then there's also just like, I'm not sure about you, but I have a lack of motivation to really get it going because it's like, I want to do it. It sounds good in theory. Then I sit down to do it. I'm like, damn, there's so many other things I could be doing instead of this.
Mine has recently really been, I'm struggling with, there's so much I want to do. I don't know where to begin. And then I don't, or I do something all at once. And then like it gets 90% of the way done and it gets held up either by myself or someone else. So we'll see if I can break the trend. The good news is in my like weird medium procrastination, I have a lot of the stuff ready for the season. So my season content's solid already because like I know what I already have that stuff ready.
That's the theory on what I'm going to switch to. It's just produce a bunch of stuff whenever you can, have it backlog, and then the more time sensitive stuff, force that out sooner. And the evergreen stuff, hold on to it to when you need it.
We'll take this off pod, but I have some theories and I think we'll have to
go back to the planning meeting we need
Yeah, for the season, because I know how I want to do things. I think people like it, but I want to make sure it makes sense with the two of us as we work it. But anyway, yeah. So now that you guys have been in that meeting, thanks for listening.
Until next time, don't forget to play ball.